Thank you, Madam President. I think we're adjourned, so I can probably turn and don't have to face you. I thought we saw he died. Almost? Okay. Well, the beauty of following behind Senator Cohen is I'll be short. So those of you in the gallery, I have no clue why you're still here. But if you're kind of waiting around to see if this is going to be a retirement speech, you're going to be disappointed. But I did talk with Senator Guzalko about some thoughts I want to share about what we've all just been through, especially like in the last 6 weeks. And let me first say, Senator Guzalko, when things go well, leaders get too much of the credit. And when things don't go very well, leaders get too much of the blame. And I wish we've got a few colleagues missing, and I wish they were here, because what I'm about to talk about with you is, I think, really, really important to the future of this institution. Many of you, most of you maybe in this room, are going to be here long after I have moved on. And I've been here, as Senator Cohen sometimes says, I've been here a while. And well into my 3rd decade here. And our conference committee process has been deteriorating over time. My very first session here, Democrats controlled the House and controlled the Senate. And we had a special session, my very first year here, because the Democratic E12 chair, actually we called it a K12 then, we didn't put an E on it, and the Senate one couldn't agree on the education bill, and we had a 3-day special session my very first year. And I can tell you as a freshman, I didn't understand how that could happen after 5 months here, that they couldn't get to an agreement. Everybody knew when we were supposed to be done. So the conference committee process has always been a challenge, but it's gotten more and more difficult, and much of the blame, I would argue more than half of the blame, belongs to the people that are officed on the other side of Park Street. So there's plenty of blame to go around for where we find ourselves. And in recent times, it's been compounded by some of the physical constraints that we've had with the Capitol under renovation. In 2015 was made very, very difficult. That was our last budget year. The governor was out of the building. We were holding our leadership meetings to try and establish budget targets over at the residence down Summit. The press had to stand out in the rain or the snow or whatever out in the yard, and the governor would invite them into the basement, waiting for the leaders to try broker a deal. And that year, we got fairly close, and chairs seemed to, for the most part, work out their differences and for the most part do it in public, but for I guess 2 bills that leaders really had to come in and kind of close the deal up when it just looked like we were going to run out of time. Ended up with a special 1-day special session to close up a couple of vetoed bills. But this year, and those of you that know me know I'm not exactly the poster child for transparency. And I've earned that, the fact that I'm not. But never before have I seen so little conference committee activity. And I don't expect it in a special session, but in the regular session, the process failed like I've never seen it fail before. Conference committee reports just kind of show up out of nowhere. Conference committees maybe meet once, maybe just to approve the report, and it was drafted someplace. And the only defense in that it wasn't done in the dark of night was the fact that the room had windows. But it was troubling. And you know, it's always going to be hard. But whatever happened to House on one side of the table, Senate on the other side of the table, and actually making motions? I move Article 3, Senate line 2.1 to 2.19, House line, Article blah, 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 line. And the reason we've got bills so riddled with errors is because we didn't go through that. We put all of our incredible Senate staff, our nonpartisan staff, and the revisor's office in just an impossible situation where rather than multiple conference committee meetings over weeks where provisions were adopted and both House and Senate staff got to vet what was adopted, things just all of a sudden appeared, and it was just impossible for all of our nonpartisan staff and the revisers to possibly get it right. And so the way this concluded was part of the reason we couldn't take bills up here on the floor was the governor's people actually had to review them to make sure that what was in the bill was actually what was agreed to, because it was all agreed to in private, and no one trusted anybody that what was in the bills was actually the agreement, because it wasn't done how it needs to be done. And I know there are, and Representative Nelson was a bit critical last year when we finished up, that if we just could change the rules, if we just could make sure that those conference committee reports were on members' desks 3 days before the end, somehow this process would be better. Members, there's nothing wrong with the conference committee rules. The rules have been drafted and vetted over decades. It's not the rules, it's the behavior. It's the behavior of the chairs, and to some extent the fact that leadership, myself included, and there's been plenty of us involved in the deterioration of this process, haven't held chairs accountable enough. And many of you in this room are chairs or have been chairs, and we've just let it fall apart, and now we're sleeping on our couches. We're here all night over multiple days, and it's starting to look like D.C. politics. And you know what? Someday it's not going to be funny. Someday, somebody leaving here in the middle of the night, or in the middle of the day that's been here for 2 days and hasn't slept, an accident is going to happen and someone is going to be gravely hurt or somebody is going to die. And we in this room are all going to own that. There is no excuse for all of us treating each other like sleep doesn't matter, and treating our employees like sleep doesn't matter. And Senator Gazelka, this isn't a criticism of you. This has been deteriorating for a long time around here, and we have to figure out how we fix it before we really regret that we didn't all seriously, in a bipartisan way, fix this and something bad happens to somebody in this. This is a pretty tight family around here, and we all will feel absolutely horrible when that happens, because something will happen someday. So I've already talked longer than Senator Cohen, but I'm going to say it again, Senator Gazelka. Leaders get too much credit when things go well, and they get too much blame when things don't go well. And let me just close, and I'm not a Trekkie or a Star Wars guy, but I've always admired that little Yoda guy for some reason. And I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right for those of you that do admire him, but I do remember him saying, there is no try, there's do. And all of us in this room can fix this. and it will be a way better process. We all will feel better about the process. The public will feel better. The press will feel better. The outcome will be better. And we'll all feel better about how we treat each other. So I am absolutely willing to participate in that in whatever role that I can. It would be great to come back here next year, and we can, the House can't do it this way unless we're willing participants. We get the gavel every other day. And we, the Senate, can make this process work. And I just would ask all of you to think about that. Let's come back next year and have a session that's just not quite as difficult in the final week or the final days. So thank you all for indulging me. I know it's later than late, but I just feel I have to share it because if something bad happens, I want to at least say, I told you we should have fixed this.